The courtroom fell silent as Commander Elena Vasquez stepped into the observation chamber. Through the transparent barrier, she could see her daughter Maya sitting alone at the defense table, small hands folded on the polished surface. The child was 7 years old. Too young to understand why the Crithian Empire wanted her dead. The human colony violated breeding restrictions, High Chancellor Vextar announced, his crystalline voice echoing through the amphitheater. 23 offspring born outside the designated fertility window. This constitutes an act of biological warfare. Elena's jaw tightened. The accusation was absurd. Humans didn't have breeding seasons like the Crithians. They'd explained this during first contact, during the treaty negotiations, during every subsequent diplomatic exchange. But the Empire refused to believe that any sentient species could reproduce year-round without controlled intent. "My daughter is not a weapon," Elena said quietly into the comm system. "Your species' unchecked reproduction threatens the galactic order," Vextar replied. "The Council has ruled that unless you provide biological proof of your claim, the unauthorized births constitute a declaration of hostile expansion. The penalty is sterilization of the entire colony." Maya looked up at the observation window. Her dark eyes found her mother's through the reinforced glass. She didn't cry. Elena had taught her better than that. In space, tears were weakness. On colony worlds, weakness meant death. "We've submitted medical records," Elena said. "DNA sequences. Hormonal profiles. Everything you requested. Data can be falsified." Vextar's compound eyes glittered like cut gems. "The Queen demands direct observation. If humans truly cannot control their breeding cycle, then, you will demonstrate this before the Imperial Court." Elena felt ice crystallize in her chest. "Demonstrate how?" "Bring forth a breeding pair. Show us the biological mechanisms that prevent seasonal control. If you speak truth, the trial ends. If you lie, the sentence will be carried out within the hour." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Representatives from 17 species filled the gallery, their varied forms creating a tapestry of chitin, fur, and scales. None of them bred like humans. The Crithians spawned during the solar bloom. The Vextori required chemical triggers from their planet's moon. Even the silicon-based Koresh needed specific mineral concentrations in their atmosphere. Humans were the anomaly. The threat. Elena's hand moved to the emergency beacon at her belt. One press would signal the colony ships to scatter, to flee into deep space. They'd be refugees, hunted across the galaxy, but they'd be alive. Maya stood up. The child's chair scraped against the floor, a sharp sound that cut through the murmuring crowd. Every eye in the courtroom turned toward her. "Your Majesty," Maya said, her voice clear and steady. "I can explain." Vextar's head tilted, segments of his neck rotating with mechanical precision. "A juvenile? The defense presents a juvenile as witness? I'm explaining for myself." Maya stepped away from the table. 2 Crithian guards moved to intercept, but a gesture from Vextar stopped them. "You think we make babies as weapons? But you're wrong about how it works." Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. What was Maya doing? They'd agreed to let the lawyers handle this. They'd prepared statements, evidence, expert testimony. "Proceed," Vextar said. Maya walked to the center of the courtroom floor. She was tiny compared to the alien dignitary surrounding her, a slip of a girl in a colony jumpsuit that still smelled faintly of recycled air and hydroponic gardens. "My friend Sarah was born in winter," Maya said. "Marcus was born in summer. I was born in spring. We don't choose when. Our parents don't choose when. It just happens. Biological processes can be controlled," Vextar countered. "All civilized species regulate reproduction according to environmental resources. Your claim suggests chaos. It's not chaos." Maya's hands clenched into small fists. "It's just different. My mom told me about Earth before we left. She said humans lived in places where it was always hot, and places where it was always cold, and places in between. We had to be able to have babies anywhere, anytime, or we would have died out. The chamber had gone completely quiet. Elena watched her daughter stand alone before the alien court, watched her explain human evolution with the simple clarity of a child who'd grown up among the stars. If you only breed during the bloom, Maya continued, looking directly at Vextar. What happens if something bad occurs during the bloom? What if there's no food or a disaster? Your whole species would skip that year. But humans can wait. We can try again next month. Or next season. Whenever it's safe. Vextar's translator crackled with something that might have been uncertainty. This adaptation would require constant biological readiness. Constant vulnerability to reproduction. Yes, Maya said simply. Then, you admit your species cannot cease breeding. Cannot exercise restraint. We exercise restraint all the time. Maya's voice sharpened. My parents chose to have me. They didn't have to. Humans can decide not to have babies. We just can't decide what month or season our bodies are ready. There's a difference. Elena felt something shift in the chamber's atmosphere. Several alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. The Vextori ambassadors' tentacles curled with what their species displayed as contemplation. The child speaks of choice, a new voice said. Queen Ashkara emerged from the shadows behind the high bench. Her presence filled the room like gravity, like the pull of a planet's core. She was twice the size of Vextar, her carapace adorned with the crystalline growths that marked true royalty among the Crithians. Explain this paradox. You claim biological inability to control breeding seasons, yet claim the choice to breed or not. These concepts oppose each other. Maya didn't flinch. My body gets ready whether I want it to or not. But my mind decides what happens. Humans are two things at once. We're animals and we're people. The animal part does what it's programmed to do. The people part makes choices. The Queen's compound eyes reflected the courtroom lights like 1,000 tiny stars. She descended from her throne, each step measured and deliberate. The guards tensed, but Elena noticed their training held. They watched without moving, professional and alert. When Ashkara reached Maya, the child had to crane her neck to look up. The Queen stood 3 meters tall, her shadow swallowing the girl completely. Halt the trial, Queen Ashkara said. The words hung in the air like suspended particles, impossible to retract. Vextar's translator buzzed with confusion. Several representatives rose from their seats in protest. Your Majesty, the evidence is incomplete, Vextar began. The trial is halted. The Queen's voice carried absolute authority. I will have my proof. But not here. Not in this theater of judgment. She looked down at Maya. Child of the year-round breeders. You will come with me to the medical sanctum. We will examine your claims with precision. If you speak truth, your colony lives. If you lie, your mother watches you die before her own sentence is carried out. Elena's hand slammed against the observation window. No! Take me instead! You are not the one who stopped my court. Ashkara extended one crystalline claw toward Maya. You did not show me the paradox of human existence. She did. Maya looked back at her mother one last time. Then, she placed her small hand in the Queen's enormous claw. The courtroom doors sealed behind them with the finality of a tomb closing. Elena stood frozen behind the glass, watching the space where her daughter had been. Around her, the chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives argued. Lawyers shouted objections. Security protocols activated with harsh electronic warnings. But Elena heard none of it. She was already moving toward the exit, toward the medical sanctum, toward whatever examination the Queen had planned. Her daughter's life hung in the balance, suspended by the fragile thread of biological truth. And in the Crithian Empire, truth was determined by those who held power. The guards blocked her path. 2 massive Crithian warriors, their armor gleaming like the shells of ancient beetles. The observation chamber is sealed, one said. Protocol demands you remain until the Queen's examination concludes. Protocol can burn, Elena said flatly. That's my child. That is the defendant. The guard's voice held no malice, only fact. The Queen has invoked right of personal inquiry. No interference is permitted. Elena calculated the distance to the guard's weak points. The gaps in Crithian armor were small, but they existed. She'd studied their physiology during the war, before the treaty, when knowing how to kill them meant survival. "Stand down, Commander!" The voice came from behind her. Ambassador Chen, the colony's chief diplomat, placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. "If you attack, you prove their accusations. You make us the violent, uncontrolled species they fear. They took Maya. The Queen took Maya." Chen corrected gently. "Not Vexthar. Not the Council. The Queen herself. That matters." Elena wanted to scream. She wanted to tear through the guards and fight her way to the sanctum. Instead, she forced herself to breathe, to think like a commander instead of a mother. Why does it matter? Because queens don't personally examine evidence unless they doubt the prosecution. Chen guided Elena away from the guards, back toward the observation window. Ashkara didn't trust Vexthar's interpretation. She wants to see for herself. And if she doesn't like what she sees? Chen's expression went carefully neutral. "Then, we find out if our colony's ships are faster than Imperial interceptors." Below them, the courtroom continued to fragment into arguments. The Vextori ambassador was demanding clarification on procedural violations. The silicon-based Koresh representative had withdrawn into crystalline silence, their usual response to confusion. And Vexthar stood at the high bench, his posture radiating fury at having his trial commandeered. "This is unprecedented," Vexthar announced, his voice cutting through the noise. "The Queen has no authority to halt judicial proceedings. The Queen has absolute authority." The correction came from Captain Thexmore, commander of the Royal Guard. He stood at the rear of the chamber, arms crossed over his chest plates. "Especially when the verdict might trigger a war." The room went silent. "War?" Vexthar's translator crackled with disbelief. "The humans are a single colony. Barely 3,000 souls. They pose no military threat. They pose a philosophical threat." Thexmore moved forward with the measured grace of a career soldier. "If what the child says is true, if humans genuinely cannot control their breeding season but can control whether they breed at all, then our entire understanding of reproductive biology is flawed. Every treaty we've signed based on that understanding becomes questionable. Every alliance, every trade agreement, every territorial boundary drawn according to breeding cycles and population control suddenly exists in contested space." Elena felt Chen tense beside her. The old diplomat understood what Thexmore was really saying. This wasn't about Maya or the colony anymore. This was about the foundation of galactic civilization. The child spoke of choice. Thexmore continued. Of separating biological capacity from conscious decision. No species in the Empire has ever demonstrated this division. If humans possess it, they represent either evolution's next step or a dangerous aberration. The Queen must determine which. "And if it's aberration?" one of the gallery representatives asked. Thexmore's silence was answer enough. Elena's comm unit vibrated. She glanced down at the encrypted message crawling across the small screen. It was from the colony's medical director, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo. "Sanctum breached. Observation feeds active. Sending you the link." Elena's fingers flew across the interface. Within seconds, she had access to the medical sanctum's monitoring systems. The screen showed Maya sitting on an examination table, surrounded by instruments that looked more like torture devices than diagnostic equipment. Queen Ashkara loomed over the child, her crystalline claws moving with surprising delicacy as she attached sensors to Maya's temples, her wrists, the base of her spine. "These instruments will measure your hormonal patterns," the Queen explained. Her voice, transmitted through the observation feed, had lost its courtroom formality. She spoke like a scientist now, clinical and precise. "They will show me if your reproductive system operates on a cycle or in continuous readiness." "Will it hurt?" Maya asked. "Pain is irrelevant to truth." "That's not what I asked." Ashkara paused. Her compound eyes studied the child with what might have been respect. It will be uncomfortable. I will not lie to you about that. Maya nodded. Okay. My mom always says truth hurts sometimes, but lies hurt more. The Queen resumed her work, attaching the final sensors. Your mother is wise. Now remain still. This will take several hours. We must observe your biological rhythms through multiple cycles. Elena watched the monitors, her heart aching. Maya sat motionless on the examination table, electrodes covering her small body like the legs of metallic spiders. The data streams began flowing across adjacent screens, complex patterns of hormones and neural activity that Elena couldn't interpret. But someone could. Dr. Okonkwo appeared beside Elena, tablet in hand, reading the data in real time. This is extraordinary, Okonkwo whispered. The Queen is running a full endocrine panel. She's mapping Maya's reproductive hormones hour by hour, looking for the peaks and troughs that would indicate seasonal preparation. And? Elena demanded. And Maya's levels are completely steady. Baseline. No surge, no suppression, just constant low-level readiness. Exactly like we've been trying to tell them. Okonkwo's expression shifted from wonder to concern. But Elena, the Queen is also running cognitive scans. She's not just measuring Maya's body. She's measuring her mind. On the screen, Maya's eyes had closed. The sensors on her temples pulsed with soft blue light, indicators of active neural mapping. What is she looking for? Elena asked. I think she's trying to find the choice. Okonkwo pointed to a particularly dense cluster of data. See this activity in the prefrontal cortex? That's decision-making, impulse control, abstract reasoning. The Queen is trying to prove that humans can think their way past biological imperatives. We can, Elena said. Every species can. Not like us. Okonkwo shook her head. The Crithians spawn during the bloom because their brain chemistry changes. They become different creatures, driven entirely by reproductive instinct. When the bloom ends, their higher functions return. Same with most species here. They separate breeding from consciousness. But humans, we maintain consciousness through the whole process. We feel the biological drive and decide what to do about it. That terrifies them. Elena understood suddenly. It wasn't human fertility the Empire feared. It was human will. The ability to want something and choose not to take it. The power to override instinct with intention. That kind of control was dangerous. It suggested humans could want anything at all, and still make calculated decisions about pursuing it. Including war. Including conquest. Including revenge. Hours passed. The courtroom emptied as representatives grew tired of waiting. Vexthar remained at his bench, rigid with disapproval. The royal guard rotated shifts but never left their posts. And Elena watched every second of Maya's examination, watched her daughter endure test after test with the patience of someone twice her age. She's strong, Chen said at one point. Stronger than most adults I've known. She's a colony kid, Elena replied. We're all strong or we're all dead. No middle ground in space. Finally, after 8 hours of continuous monitoring, Queen Ashkara stepped back from the examination table. She studied the data streams for a long moment, her crystalline form absolutely still. Then, she removed the sensors from Maya's body, one by one, with the same delicate care she'd used to attach them. You told truth, the Queen said quietly. Maya opened her eyes, exhausted but alert. I know. Your species maintains conscious control over unconscious drives. You exist in permanent conflict between body and mind. This is your natural state. I guess so. Maya slid off the examination table, her legs shaky. Can I see my mom now? Soon. Ashkara moved to a communication panel on the wall. First, I must end what I halted. Captain Thexmore, convene the court. I will deliver my findings. The Royal Guard captain's voice came through clearly. The court awaits your presence, Your Majesty. I will not come to the court. Ashkara looked down at Maya. The court will come to me. Bring them to the sanctum. All of them. Let every representative see what I have seen. Elena felt Chen grip her arm. This is good, the diplomat whispered. If she wanted to condemn us, she'd do it from the throne. She's bringing them here because she wants them to see Maya. To see the proof. Or to watch the execution in person, Elena countered. Stay positive, Commander. We're still breathing. Within 20 minutes, the medical sanctum had transformed into an impromptu courtroom. Representatives crowded the observation gallery, their varied forms pressed against the transparent walls. Vextar stood near the door, deliberately separate from the Queen's position. And Maya sat on the examination table, small and tired and impossibly brave. Queen Ashkara activated the data displays, projecting the hours of test results into the air above Maya's head. Graphs and charts materialized like ghosts, showing the steady, unchanging rhythms of human reproductive biology. The child spoke truth, Ashkara announced. Humans maintain constant biological readiness for reproduction. They do not cycle with seasons or environmental cues. Their fertility is independent of external control. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Vextar's translator crackled with something sharp and bitter. However, the Queen continued, this constant readiness does not equal constant breeding. The cognitive scans show unprecedented prefrontal activity during reproductive decision-making. Humans possess the neurological capacity to override biological imperatives through conscious choice. They are perhaps the only species in known space who can feel instinct and simply choose to ignore it. That makes them unpredictable, Vextar protested. Dangerous. If they can override breeding instinct, they can override any instinct, including the instinct for self-preservation. They could choose war even when logic demands peace. They could, Ashkara agreed. They could also choose peace even when instinct demands war. This is the paradox the child explained. Humans are both animal and person, biology and choice, existing in constant negotiation between the two. This is not a weapon. This is simply how they are built. The Queen moved to stand directly beside Maya. One crystalline claw rested gently on the child's shoulder. I rule that the human colony violated no treaty. Their offspring were not bred as weapons of expansion. They were born because humans breed year-round, as is their nature. The trial is ended. The charges are dismissed. The colony will continue under imperial protection. Elena's knees nearly buckled. Chen caught her, the old diplomat laughing with relief. Around them, the observation chamber erupted in reactions ranging from approval to outrage. Vextar stepped forward, his posture rigid with formal challenge. Your Majesty, this ruling contradicts established precedent. It suggests we must rewrite our understanding of reproductive control for every species we encounter. It opens questions about every population treaty in imperial space. Yes, Ashkara said simply. It does. Perhaps it is time we ask those questions. Perhaps we have been too rigid in our assumptions about how sentient life should function. She looked down at Maya. This child taught me something today. She taught me that difference is not always danger. Sometimes difference is simply difference. The Queen raised her voice to address the full assembly. Let it be recorded that humans are recognized as a unique species with year-round reproductive capacity and conscious choice in breeding. They will be given the same rights and protections as all imperial citizens. Any further accusations of biological warfare against them will require extraordinary evidence and my personal review. And if other species make similar claims? The Vextor ambassador asked. Then, we will examine them as we examined this child. With precision. With patience. And with the willingness to be wrong. Ashkara's compound eyes swept across the gathered representatives. The Empire does not grow through assumption. It grows through understanding. Today, we understand humans better. Tomorrow, perhaps we will understand ourselves better. She gestured toward the door. The court is adjourned. Captain Thexmore, ensure the human delegation receives safe passage back to their colony. At once, Your Majesty. The representatives filed out, their conversations already shifting to the political implications of the ruling. Vexthar left without a word, his crystalline form stiff with barely contained fury. But Elena didn't care about any of them. She was already moving toward the sanctum's entrance, toward her daughter. The guards let her pass without challenge. She burst through the door, and Maya looked up, exhausted smile breaking across her face. "Mom!" Elena crossed the distance in 3 strides and pulled her daughter into her arms. Maya clung to her, finally, allowing herself to cry, finally, releasing the fears she'd held locked inside throughout the entire ordeal. "You were so brave," Elena whispered into her daughter's hair. "So impossibly brave." "I just told the truth," Maya said between sobs. "Like you taught me. The truth saved us all." Elena looked up at Queen Ashkara, who stood watching them with unreadable expression. "Your Majesty, I don't know how to thank you." "Thank your daughter. She is the one who made me question my certainties." Ashkara moved toward the exit, her massive form graceful despite its size. "Commander Vasquez, a word before you depart." Elena gently extracted herself from Maya's embrace and followed the queen to the far side of the sanctum. Ashkara's voice dropped to a frequency meant only for Elena's ears. "I did not do this out of kindness," the queen said bluntly. "I did it because your child revealed a flaw in our civilization. We have spent millennia assuming that control of reproduction equals control of expansion equals control of violence. Your species proves this equation false. You can breed constantly yet choose restraint. This changes everything we thought we understood about the relationship between biology and behavior." "I see," Elena said carefully. "Do you?" Ashkara's compound eyes fixed on her. "Because I am not certain I do. Your daughter spoke of being 2 things at once, animal and person, body and mind. But she is still a child. She has not yet experienced the full force of human reproductive drive. When she does, when all humans do, will they truly choose restraint? Or will their year-round fertility eventually overwhelm their year-round choice?" Elena met the queen's gaze without flinching. "I guess you'll have to wait and see. Just like we do." Ashkara made a sound that the translator rendered as something between a laugh and a warning. "Honesty. Good. Keep that. Your species will need it as you grow in imperial space. Other species will watch you now, Commander. They will watch to see if year-round breeding truly remains under year-round control. Prove them wrong about their fears, and humans will thrive. Prove them right, and not even I will be able to protect you." "Understood, Your Majesty." "I hope so." Ashkara moved past her toward the door. "Take your daughter home, Commander. Let her rest. She has done enough for one day. She has changed the Empire. The question now is whether the Empire can change with her." The Queen left, her footsteps echoing down the corridor like the slow beat of a drum. Elena returned to Maya, who had curled up on the examination table, fighting sleep. "Come on, sweetheart," Elena said gently. "Let's go home." "Did we win?" Maya asked, her voice thick with exhaustion. Elena thought about Ashkara's warning, about the watching eyes of 17 species, about the weight of representing all of humanity in a single child's testimony. "Yes," she said finally, because Maya was 7 and deserved to sleep without nightmares. "We won." But, as she carried her daughter out of the sanctum, through the emptied courtroom, past the impassive guards and into the transport that would take them back to the colony, Elena knew the truth was more complex. They'd won the trial. They'd won their freedom to exist. But they'd also won the burden of proof, the endless requirement to demonstrate that human choice was stronger than human biology. Every child born in the colony from this day forward would carry that weight. Every human who joined them in imperial space would bear the responsibility of conscious restraint. They were free, yes. But freedom came with the price of eternal vigilance, eternal choice, eternal proof that they were more than their biology suggested. The transport lifted off, carrying them away from the capital city toward the colony settlement. Through the viewport, Elena could see the familiar dome of their habitat, the agricultural rings, the processing plants that turned alien soil into human food. 3,000 souls living on the edge of known space, existing by permission of an empire that still didn't fully trust them. Maya stirred in her arms. Mom? What is it, sweetheart? The Queen was scared of us. Elena started to deny it, then stopped. Maya had stood alone before the imperial court. She'd earned honest answers. Yes, Elena admitted. I think she was. Because we can choose. Because you can choose and they can't quite believe it. They think biology is destiny. You taught them otherwise. Maya was quiet for a moment, processing this. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but certain. Then, we have to keep choosing good things. We have to show them that choice makes us better, not worse. Elena felt something break open in her chest, a fierce pride mixed with profound fear. Her daughter understood the weight they carried. Understood and accepted it with the simple clarity of a child who'd grown up knowing that survival meant bearing burdens too heavy for small shoulders. Yes, Elena said, pulling her daughter closer. That's exactly what we have to do. The transport descended toward the colony, toward home, toward the future they'd fought so hard to secure. Below them, the settlement lights flickered like earthbound stars, each one representing a life saved by a 7-year-old's courage. And in the imperial capital behind them, Queen Ashkara stood at the window of her private chamber, watching the human transport disappear into the distance. Beside her, Captain Thexmore maintained his customary silence, waiting for orders. Double the monitoring protocols on the human colony, Ashkara said finally. I want birth rates, population projections, resource consumption patterns. Everything. You believe they will prove your fears correct? I believe they will surprise us again. The question is whether the surprise will be wonder or horror. She turned from the window. That child showed me something today, Thexmore. She showed me that we have built our entire civilization on the assumption that biology constrains behavior. But what if it doesn't? What if consciousness is stronger than instinct? What does that mean for every treaty we've signed, every war we've fought, every decision we've made based on the idea that sentient beings are ultimately prisoners of their own nature? It means we were wrong, Your Majesty. It means we were incomplete. Ashkara's crystalline carapace caught the light of the setting sun. The humans have given us a gift, even if they don't realize it. They've given us doubt. And doubt, Captain, is the beginning of wisdom. She moved away from the window, back toward the throne room where endless responsibilities awaited. Maintain standard protection for the colony. And Thexmore? If anyone attempts to harm those humans, anyone at all, you have my permission to use lethal force. They are under Imperial protection now. That means something. Yes, Your Majesty. Alone in the corridor, Thexmore allowed himself the smallest smile. The child had been brave. The mother had been wise. And the Queen had been open to learning. Perhaps there was hope for the Empire after all. He returned to his duties, to the endless watch that defined his existence. Somewhere in the colony, Maya slept in her mother's arms. Somewhere in the capital, representatives argued about the implications of the ruling. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other species watched and wondered about the year-round breeders who chose restraint. The story was far from over. It had, perhaps, only just begun. But for now, for this moment, 3,000 humans breathed easier, lived freer, and looked toward tomorrow with hope instead of fear. And a child who had stopped an empire slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where difference was simply difference, and choice was the greatest power of all.